welcome to Knitting My Shit Together, a knitting and fiber arts podcast where neurodivergence and yarn collide. My name's Willa. I use she, her pronouns. I am in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and you can find me on Instagram at TomboyFemBags and at WhatWillaMake.
My name's Sam. I use she, they pronouns. I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and you can find me on Instagram at Queer of Pentacles Makes.
Yay! Hi, Sam.
Hi.
Long time no podcast.
Right.
We did.
It was last year.
I know. We did put it. It's now in my calendar, though, people, with an alarm set. I mean, we're not going to make commitments because clearly, but hopefully, you know, hope springs eternal.
Yes.
Basically. Okay, do you want to do general updates?
Yeah.
Okay. I had people here for my birthday. Several of my group of close friends. Annika was here for like over a month. It was amazing. Sultan was here for several weeks. Yelly was here for a little. Just because we're all kind of like the people in my pod just live in other states. But we don't really see anybody else but each other. And that was really fun. It was good to have people just hanging in my space, crafting with me and knitting and all the things. I found the best fabric store ever. It's in a suburb, and they kind of get like remnants and the ends of bolts and stuff like that from designers and other places. And I got wool fabric for like $8 a yard.
Nice.
I think I got some silk for $5 to $6 a yard. Bananas deals.
Yeah, that's like nothing.
Yeah, and I'm dabbling in clothing design because, you know, it's the pandemic. And I've been making just a ton of things. I have several FOs to share when we get to that, but I've also been doing a lot of sewing and spinning and watching lots of murder shows on TV.
That's what I did today.
Yeah, and all the things. What's new for you, Sam?
I also found a fabric store. It's a little tiny quilt shop in a town not too far from me that we had gone to go to a bakery because they have macaroons. And then it was just like a bunch of really nice old ladies who were very excited that I wanted to sew more and that I already knew a lot of other crafts. So that was nice. I'm always intimidated by like tiny fabric stores because I feel like they're going to be like, oh, yes, a young person. But no, they were really super sweet. And they tried to get me to come to their quilt guild meeting too. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I just started quilting. But other than that,
you're like,
just
maybe
kind
I should see if I like it first.
Yeah, maybe I should try a couple projects before I commit to being in a quilting guild. Yeah. Otherwise, I've just been hanging out, dealing with a little bit of loss in my family and COVID stuff. So just kind of keeping busy and chugging on.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I figured out my sleep schedule. Did I tell you that?
No.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this a little bit in the mental health moment, but I added another ADHD med to my regimen. It has changed everything. Like, awesome. I feel like I have impulse control.
That's great.
Like, I don't feel like, it's not that I don't have to exert effort, but I don't feel like I'm fighting against my brain. I don't know. It's just been kind of mind-blowing. And part of that is I also now have a sleep schedule, and I'm getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. But
nice.
I have to do tons of stuff for that to happen and practice tons of self-discipline. Like, for example, I have a tent I sleep in at night to close down, and I fall asleep to a Headspace fall asleep meditation. If you're on Headspace, check out the Midnight Laundrette Sleepcast. Oh my God. it's my favorite one. It takes place in a laundromat. But and then I have to take 2 trazodone. And then in the morning I do one of those lights that daylight lights for 25 minutes while I have my morning coffee. And then if I do all that and stick hardcore to a schedule, I can sleep at night-ish. Like, my schedule is like 2 a.m. to 10.
That's not bad, though.
No, it feels kind of reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a very long history with insomnia, so I understand having to have, like, very specific conditions to sleep in. A lot of the times, there's this podcast called The Empty Bowl, which it's about cereal, which sounds weird, but it has a very calming ocean soundtrack in the background, and they very quietly talk about weird cereal. So that's one of my things I like to listen to go to sleep. I have to have some measure of light in the room, which Becca does not like, but I can't fall asleep if there's not at least a little bit of light in the room.
Does she just wear an eye mask thing?
No, she just rolls to the other side. A lot of times we'll leave the TV on, and then she'll turn it off because she usually falls asleep after me. But yeah, it's very specific. I take trazodone too, and yeah.
Are you on Headspace?
I've never used Headspace, no.
Okay, well, I'll send you a link if you want to try it.
Okay.
They have these sleep casts, and it's just like somebody telling a story, and the stories are the same but different. And what they have soothing voices, and what they do is they start with like what they call a wind down, which is just like a mindfulness activity to get settled in your body and to like calm down, and then they tell the story. Yeah,
I'd be willing to try it, definitely.
Okay. Let's see, is that all that's new with us? Should we go on to FOs?
Sure.
FOs. Do you want to go first, or should I?
I'll go first.
Do it.
Okay. Yeah, I curated a few of my FOs because since we haven't podcasted since last year, and I've been going headfirst into finishing things, I have quite a few. So I only brought a few over, though. So let's see. So first, I got my first Advent last year for Christmas / holiday times. And I wanted to try to find something interesting to do with it that wasn't just, I don't know, something plain. So I found this pattern called the Cat Vent Cowl. And it's by Marna Gilligan. And yeah, so I used all of the colors. The Advent that I had was the junk yarn Advents. It was 2 12-day Advents. But yeah, I'm trying to find, here's some cats. So there's rows of cats, and then every single different section
has baubles.
Yep, there's baubles. Every section they had, like, that was supposed to be noses.
It, like, reversible, basically?
Yeah, it's a tube. So it just keeps going.
Can you not seam it together and have, like, just a long circular tube? Does that make sense?
It's too short, like, width-wise to do a tube this way. But there is also part of it is you can add a twist in so that this is twisted.
Mobius, yeah.
Like a Mobius, yeah. But I didn't do that just because I wanted it to be flat. I don't know. But yeah, so there's all different sections. There's 3 sections of cats, and then everything else. Like, this is supposed to stand for whiskers, claws. Like, they're all cat-themed sections. So,
cool. And
you can knit it as you go. Like, if you're opening your Advent and you want to do 1 section a day, it's made so that you can do 1 section per day that you open your Advent. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then with my leftovers from that, I made 2 hats. I made 2 marled hats. I might donate these or like put them in my gift bag, but yeah, so I made these 2.
Those are pretty.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to try, because I'm trying to like clean up my stash, I'm trying to use up as much of like the scraps and stuff as I go so that I'm not just making my bag for my northeasterly with all of the scrap yarn in it even bigger. Yeah, so I finished that, and then what else? So I finished a pair of socks. I hadn't been knitting socks as much because I knit like 14 pairs of socks last year, so I was taking a little bit of a break. But I started these. They're the Pebbles and Pathways socks by Hey Brownberry. And I used Crafticorn in Victorian Gothic for the color. So
Awesome.
they have a nice little easy cable pattern. I didn't have to use a cable needle for them at all. And then there's like garter stitch section.
Those are pretty. I like that yarn.
Yeah, it's really pretty. I like it a lot. It's the kind of pink that I like.
Me too. So like a dirty, dusty, rosy, or like a pale pink that's kind of dirty-ish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and this is a toe-up pattern as well, which is not usually what I go for, but
you did.
I've been opening my heart to toe-up socks. And then I did have a small detour from my not buying any yarn for the year. We went to a market that my dad had recommended, and they had a little yarn stand in it, so I bought a little bit while I was there. So I got this kit. It's the Blue Sky Fibers 21 color mitts set. It's really cute. It comes in like a little paper bag with the little minis sticking out the top. It's so adorable.
I've seen those. Isn't there a hat one too?
There's a matching hat one too.
I totally thought about getting it because it's adorable.
I've eyed it up every single time I've seen it, so that's why I was finally like, I'm just gonna get it. So I finished the mittens, and they're so cute.
They're so cute.
So many ends to weave in, but it was worth it.
Did you weave in as you go? I do that.
I didn't. Nope. I just did it all at once. I sat there and I had a little pile. But yeah, I don't have a lot of like mittens or fingerless mitts or anything, so that's why I went for the mittens instead of the hat, so at least I would have something. So yeah, that's all my FOs.
Okay, well, let's see. I have a couple to show off. I finished, look, my linen stitch hat.
Ooh.
I finished it, finally.
I like it.
So
is that the Jessica Jones one?
Yep, this is If Jessica Jones Knit a Hat. And it's by, I think her name's Sminy. You'll find the link.
I'll find it.
And I knit this in yarn from Sweden. The brand is called Litet Nistan, and it's basically, that's the name of a yarn store, a Swedish yarn store, and I bought a skein of yarn there when I was in Stockholm, because if they would have had a sweater quantity of this color, I would have bought it. But they only had one skein, so yeah.
I hate when that happens.
And I am never ever knitting linen stitch again. Although I'll be honest, here's what's bonkers. My local yarn store makes little kits to do a linen stitch scarf out of Malabrigo. And they just had a new kit come out, and I saw it, the yarnery, and I was like, oh, I totally want to knit that. It's so cute. And then I'm like, no.
no more linen
stitch. Yeah. So that's an FO. I finished my Ursa pullover.
Ooh.
So this is Ursa by Jacqueline C. Slack. I'm going to actually do the FO pictures and post them in my Instagram tomorrow.
Ah! Ooh, I love that color.
Yeah, this yarn is by Alwan Sultan Fibers. My friend Sultan, he dyed me the yarn for this project.
Oh,
because
that's
he
nice.
was like, what do you want? What color do you want? And I'm like, I said army green is like my favorite green, but I want it to be kind of tonal, you know? So he
that's great. Yeah.
He dyed this and he named it 30 Shades of Olive when brown met green. And it's really soft and I love it, and I'm really happy with the sweater.
That's awesome.
Okay, then last FO, I finished this cowl.
Ooh.
So there's like, it's all like the poopy, earthy wonderfulness. So it's called the Strata Cowl, and I got a kit at Die Hard Yarns. So if you go to Die Hard Yarns, Chastity has kits for sale, and this is what I like about it. So you mattress stitch it up. It's 2-color brioche. I'm fine with that. I don't care. what I like is it's like the perfect fit.
That's nice. Yeah.
Sometimes cowls that aren't a bandana cowl, they're just like this little tube that hangs here, and
And it doesn't do anything when you're. Yeah.
It has the height to like keep it up, and I think the brioche stitch just has enough lightness that it totally works, and I love it. And she has kits in all. She has like a rainbow kit. I mean, she has tons of kits. They're not all like this, because I know this isn't everybody's favorite color scheme.
Yeah.
So you can, and I really, really like it. And it's so soft, and because it's brioche, it's just smooshy and amazing. So, yeah.
Nice.
And that's all I'll show for FOs, because other things
Yeah.
You know.
It is a lot.
Oh, most of them were sewing and spinning, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Whips.
Okay. Well, the one that I'm working on right now. So I bought this yarn last year. It's from Hobby Yarns.
Oh yeah, Sultan goes to that site all the time.
I had never purchased anything from them before, but Becca was specifically looking for, she wanted yarn that had the self-striping with speckles, because she liked, it's actually the pair of socks that I'm wearing, but I'm not going to stick my feet up, but I had knit a pair of socks for myself that had speckles in some of the stripes, and she wanted some of those. So I found this on Hobby. It's called Scandinaviu. I don't know if that's what, but yeah.
Scandinaviu or something. Yeah.
But yeah, it's 75/25 superwash, and it says polyamide.
Like nylon.
But nylon, yeah. And it's pretty inexpensive. I bought some of their other yarn too. Like, these two are both from them. They have a decent amount of really inexpensive self-striping.
And aren't they spelled Hobbii?
Hobbii.
Okay, yeah.
And it's, I think they're in Denmark, but their shipping is like pretty cheap and really quick. Huh. It came really, really quick. So, yeah, I was pretty impressed.
Check them out. Do they have a mohair? Like a silk mohair?
They might. I've seen some interesting stuff that they have. They have like reflective yarn too. Like, you can knit stuff to, like, I was gonna knit myself a cowl for when I go running, so that I have something reflective.
That'd be cool for me to knit like a biking sweater.
Yeah, you could.
Is it like a wool and then combined with reflective material? Because I can't wear like, what's the word? Non-man-made fibers.
Yeah, they have.
Or I can't wear man-made fibers when I'm.
Yeah, I think they have it in wool or acrylic.
Okay.
So, check that out. But yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty impressed with this. It is very woolly, like scratchy, but she said she didn't care, so whatever. It's just socks. That was her exact words. It's just socks.
Yeah.
So
it's not like the skin on your feet is hypersensitive or anything.
Typically. Yeah. So that's the colors that she picked.
That's really pretty.
Yeah. So I'm happy to be getting back to self-striping yarn, because I really enjoyed watching or doing the Pebbles and Pathways, but I'm so much slower when I'm doing cables. So it took me forever to knit these. So I'm happy to have something that's like mindless back on the needles. And then I have my Woodlark shawl. It's the patterns by Fiber Tales. And the yarn that I'm using is Fiberarium Conservatory Sock. And this one's interesting because it's a triangle shawl, but you knit it in the round and then steek it, which is terrifying. But here's where I am so far. It's actually, the pattern is a little more complicated than I expected it to be. There have been a couple times when I had to like second guess myself. It's only written like the one side, like the pattern is written the first side, and then you just have to mirror the second side. And there were a couple places where I like wasn't sure what to do in the middle. Like, apparently you're supposed to slip stitches in the middle, and I just didn't, so I'm just going to continue doing that. But it's beautiful. I love this yarn.
You're supposed to slip stitches because that's what you steek, right?
No, so this is down the back. There's like a panel of 4 stitches, but like down the actual middle of the shawl, it's alternating between knitting and slipping, and I didn't do that. So. And there were a couple where I wasn't sure if you were supposed to knit in the contrast color or the main color. But whatever, it's not that big a deal. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. I wanted to knit something a little more complicated in color work, so that's what this is. Yeah. it's my fiddly project to work on right now. Yeah. So that's it for that one. I've been slowly chipping away at it. And then I actually only have 3 works in progress right now because I've been kind of focusing on finishing things and not just
Wow,
letting
check
it
you
settle.
out.
Yeah, that's not typical for me. I usually kind of obsessively cast on things. But yeah, so I'm also still working on my northeasterly blanket and I finished another row.
So pretty.
And yeah, it's getting bigger. So I'm working on my 8th row and I need to make 20. So my goal is to try to finish it by the end of this year, and we will see if that happens. But yeah, I've been adding scraps in from projects. Like these are from like Christmas socks and other Christmas socks that I made, and the shawl, there was a little bit extra left. So yeah.
Every now and then I contemplate, rather than trying to finish that granny square blanket,
Mm-hmm.
like, what if I just, the squares I have now, I could use as pillow covers or a million other things. And
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about starting like a hexie puff or one of those.
It takes a while. Like for me, because I am a project knitter, like I'm not a process knitter at all. It has been a little bit frustrating for me because I'm like, I just want it to be done. But Becca keeps sitting going, Sam, it's fingering weight yarn. And I'm like, you're not even a knitter. Why are you telling me this? Like, come on.
See, I'm a process knitter, and I'm wondering. I don't know, although I do enjoy.
You might enjoy it. Then.
I do enjoy a granny square. Maybe I'll do a granny square next, or one of those next, because it's not like I'm gonna run out of leftover yarn anytime.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I have a huge bag full of leftover yarn, and that's what I just pull out of. And I have bags and bags of leftover yarn throughout the house. But yeah, my plan is I'm going to finish this one, and then I know I'm still going to have leftover bits of yarn. So I want to do a big queen sized, at least, granny stripe blanket. Because I'd like to have a proper bed covering.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
That's all my whips.
Okay, I have more whips than this, but I'm just going to show the ones I'm actively working on.
Yeah.
Okay, the first is when I finished my Ursa, I cast on my Cozy Classic Raglan by Jessie May Designs. So you can see I switched skeins, but then I started alternating down here, which you can see. So I'm totally fine with this little discoloration, because right now I have my bright lights on, but I'm like, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm using Malabrigo yarn that I got from Die Hard Yarns, and this is their Dos Tierras, which is 50 wool, 50 alpaca. Here's what I will say about it. I normally do not like alpaca because it's too drapey, but the 50% merino like gives enough body to counteract the drape of the alpaca, and it's perfect. I really, really like this yarn. And so, and it has like, I don't know if you can see, but it has like a nice little halo.
Ooh, yeah.
Which I think is nice, because this you're supposed to do like with mohair, but I just bought DK weight yarn. This colorway is totally me. It's like that dirty pink with some gold and navy flecks. And it's called Fairy Tale. That's the name of the colorway. And so the other thing I'm really enjoying about the pattern, I've tried it on several times, is okay, I normally don't like things close to my neck at all. Like, even choke, like, bleh. But I did the tubular cast on, which is super stretchy, and I'm trying this on as I go.
Yeah.
The fit is turning out really good, and this is not tight or doesn't, like, trigger that feeling, because it's not super tight on your necks with the tubular cast on. And I really, really love this sweater. I'm really happy. I mean, all I have left is I'm probably like 2.5 to 3 inches from where I start the bottom ribbing. And the bottom ribbing is 3 inches. And then when I'm done with that, all I have is the sleeves.
Nice.
Yeah. I've been kind of on a sweater kick. Like, really into working on sweaters. So, like, I've barely been working on socks, even. Just sweaters, mostly.
Yeah. Nice.
And I've been working on, I've been wanting to knit this for, like, years, and I finally was just like, I'm casting it on. This is, it's brioche, and it's the Garter Snake Cowl by Lavagna Patricella.
Okay, yep.
And you start with the brioche before you get to the garter section. Look at that.
That's awesome.
So what I'm using, this was yarn that was gifted to me from friends. Sultan gifted me this, and I don't know the colorway. I can go get it, the tag, if y'all want, but it's by Stranded Dye Works. And then this was gifted to me by my friend Yelly, and this is from Sugar Plum Circus. And so I just kind of, yeah, I love them together. Like, it's really knitting up nicely.
Cool.
The other thing I've been working on is my cardigan that I have been working on forever. I kind of even count this as like an old whip. That me catching up on old whips. I finished the first front. This is the second front. And this is the one where I'm using Brooklyn Tweed Loft and my hand spun.
Ooh.
And it's just a raglan V-neck cardigan. It's from Amy Herzog's Ultimate Sweater Book. And I have the other two pieces blocked and hanging in there. And then once I finish this, which, you know, I'm on the decreases already for the neck, then all I have to do is the sleeves and seam it together.
Nice.
So making progress on this. That's it. Oh, remember I was doing that kind of like spinning socks thing?
Mm-hmm.
That did not work out.
Uh-oh.
I made one and tried it on, and it just didn't have enough give in the heel. So I ripped it out, started over, and what I'm doing now is I'm doing the whole thing a 2x2 rib, which seems to be fitting better. And this time, when I cut out the heel, I'm going to do like, I might do a row of 2x2 to match what's here. And then I'm also going to do Jenny's surprisingly amazing, super stretchy bind off for that. And we'll see how it works. And if not, if it doesn't work, I'm ripping this out and putting it in a blanket or something.
Oh, I was going to say, you could do the yoga socks that don't have heels, maybe.
Well, that's what this is supposed to be.
Oh, okay. So it's just getting too tight around the edges? Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And it might be because I'm doing an afterthought thing.
Maybe.
What I maybe will do is when I get to where the heel is supposed to go, which should be coming up soon, maybe I'll just, I should be about there. Bind off.
Yeah.
How would you bind off and then, I guess I just bind off on one side and then recast.
You just bind off on one side, knit that other section, and then cast on.
Yeah, do like a backward loop cast on.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I'll do. I tried to do the afterthought heel thing. It just does not work.
Yeah.
It's just not stretchy enough, so I'll try this other way, and then that should do it. So, yeah. And that's it. I sometimes work on these when I'm in my tent before bed, doing a wind down. I'll sometimes have, like, I call them my bed knitting. Yeah. And that's it.
Cool.
For my whips. Are we going to do a mental health moment?
Yeah.
Let's do a mental health moment. This week's mental health moment is brought to you by the letter F for frustration and the number 7,000, which feels like the number of provider profiles I have looked at.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about what to do, how to know when you're not a good fit with a mental health provider, and what to do. and maybe how to find a better one. And there's a few articles I looked up and read, and then I accidentally deleted the links. So I'm going to re-look them up and send them to Sam. So while I won't be able to, like, read them during this, the links will be here in the bar or whatever, or in the show notes. Or whatever. However Sam's doing it, I don't know. So I had a okay, when I decided to not go to university anymore to make bags, I could no longer use the psychiatrist I was using, who was amazing, because she only was only a provider for students at the university. So I then had to find a new psychiatrist, and basically I tried several places through, like, healthcare systems here, like Alina Healthcare, Fairview Health, University Health, and you would call and it was like multiple months waiting to get in, which doesn't really work when you are on meds and need to keep taking them.
Yeah.
So I was kind of at the point where I didn't feel like I could be super picky. And so then I checked out private clinics, and I found one that took my insurance, that could get me in right away. The psychiatrist I'm seeing, I would guess he's in his, like, 50s, early 60s maybe. And he only now, during the COVID, only does, like, phone, not even video, but, like, phone appointments. So I've never even seen the dude, okay? Like, we basically talk on the phone for about 10 minutes every month. Or every 3 months, depending on where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I wanted to add this new ADHD med, because there's this idea called combination therapy, where you take, like, the traditional stimulant meds, but then you pair it with a non-stimulant med. And they deal with different neurotransmitters. They target different neurotransmitters, and there are, like, journal articles about it and all of this. And so I met with him, and I'm like, I love the stimulant I'm on, but I still feel like I'm struggling with impulsivity to an extent that I know it's never going to totally go away, but I feel like I'm fighting against my brain.
Yeah.
And then he was asked for examples, and, you know, I discussed this with my therapist beforehand, and I ran it by friends, like, do you see this in me? And they did, and they could give me examples that I hadn't thought of. And when I was, like, sharing with him some of the areas I saw it negatively affecting my life, he was, like, debating me on it, which felt kind of gaslighty. And I'm like, if I'm telling you this is you know what I mean? And I've seen him probably, like, 5 or 6 times. Then that was frustrating. And then I was like, so, you know, I've seen these about so I started talking about adding a non-stimulant. I'm like, there's research about adding a non-stimulant. And he's like, well, I've never heard of that. And I'm like, well,
can you look it up at least? Even if you haven't heard of it, you'd think.
Yeah. And then I said, and then I brought up, too, that one of the things that I really want to address during this is my binge eating disorder, which, if you don't know, there is a super strong correlation between ADHD and binge eating disorder. Meaning, if you look at people who have binge eating disorder, the number, like, amongst people with ADHD, there is a higher proportion of people, like, multiple times over, who have binge eating disorder than in the neurotypical population.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's like peer-reviewed research that has been out for years. It's not, like, brand new. And I said, well, yeah, you know, I mean, there's the correlation between, and he's like, really? I've never heard of that. And I'm like, yeah, there's research. And he's like, well, that seems like a stretch as a correlation to me. So it was, like, super invalidating feeling. And I ended that phone call session with, like, by going upstairs crying my partner Matthew coming out into the living, I went up to him and he just gave me a hug. He's like, "What's going on?" And I just cried and I'm like, "I'm super frustrated." And I said, "I should not know more about ADHD than my psychiatrist." And my partner was like, "You're right. You shouldn't know more than your psychiatrist." And I get there are probably things he knows more about in psychiatry than I do. Obviously, he's a medical doctor.
But I'm still like, if it's something that you've never heard of, like, if I were in that place as a therapist of any sort, I would be like, well, let me look into it. Let's talk about it next time. Or
Totally.
like, I'll follow up with you, like something.
And if he would have said that, I would have been like, awesome.
Yeah.
Can
I
that makes share
sense.
the articles I came across with you? Can I have your email and email them to you? You know? And it's like, I get that doctors and healthcare providers probably hear lots of people who diagnose themselves based on articles that are not peer-reviewed and everything. I get that. That's got to be really frustrating. But, like, ask me where I saw it.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm like, oh, Dr. Oz said it, okay, then you might counter it. But
not even looking into it is extremely dismissive, and that's not fair to you.
Yeah.
Like,
so that was uber frustrating. And so what I kind of, and I talked to my therapist a little bit, and I'm like, he's not a good fit for me. And she was like, no, he's not. So I am now, I mean, I'm still going to keep treading water with him until I can find somebody else. But I'm going to now look for a provider because I feel like my anxiety and depression are completely managed right now, and they have been for a while now. And I feel like my ADHD is the most is the thing I'm struggling with the most. It's like the thing that's affecting my life the most in a negative way. So, yeah. So I think I'm going to find a psychiatrist who has a specialty in ADHD. So I've just been doing tons of research. There's a medical doctor at the Mayo Clinic, which, you know, granted is in Rochester, but maybe they're doing telehealth stuff now. So I'm researching now to see if they take my insurance, and I might switch to the Mayo Clinic.
Cool.
Yeah. So all of that to say, like, that's, if you're with a therapist, if he was like my therapist, I would first try and talk it out before ditching. Like, I would say, hey, like, when you said that last week, it just felt really invalidating of my feelings and blah, blah, blah. And I would try and work it out first.
Yeah.
However, a psychiatrist, you're not in, like, he's not doing counseling or therapy for me.
Yeah.
He's, like, hearing how my physical meds are doing and re-prescribing meds. And I need to be working with somebody who's more collaborative, I think. And so, yeah. So there's lists of articles of things. I mean, Sam, do you want to share your experience? Because you had this happen with a therapist.
Yeah, I've actually had multiple. I told you about one, but I started going to therapy when I was 13 or 14, specifically for depression at the time. And as a teenager, you know, I wasn't necessarily 100% on board, but I had some pretty crappy therapists during that time. I went through quite a few. My first therapist talked to my mom more than she talked to me and ended up encouraging my mother to get a divorce. So I was like, how am I supposed to trust you?
If you know, trying to destroy my family. Not
yeah,
that, I mean, maybe
like,
it was
no,
good.
my parents needed to get divorced, but like it wasn't her place to tell my mom.
Yeah.
She was supposed to talk to me.
And generally, that's not a therapist's job anyway. Like, as a therapist, having done some intro to therapy, being a therapist classes, you're not supposed to be like, you should do this.
Yeah.
You're supposed
But they had one conversation and then the divorce happened. So that was interesting.
Wow.
I had a therapist who didn't actually encourage any growth in me, really. I got away with just talking to her about cats every single week, which, I mean, that was a little bit of me being a teenager, but like, we didn't talk about anything serious. Like, we didn't get anywhere. I had one good therapist in between there, but then I went off to college. And then in college, I had a very bad time, was like completely suicidal, like checked myself in essentially at the campus thing and talked my way out of not going to the hospital because I was afraid of that. But they helped me find a therapist, and the therapist was okay for a while, except she was starting to learn about EMDR, which is a therapy that works for a lot of people. But at the time, I was working through a lot of trauma, and when she told me about how it works and what kinds of things it does, which is a lot about dealing with past trauma that may be not necessarily at the forefront in your mind. It helps you kind of uncover that kind of thing. I was like, as someone who is currently experiencing suicidal ideation, I don't think it's a good idea for me to do this. And she pressured me into doing it anyway, which made me worse. So yeah, I wish that I had advocated for myself more, but it's also really hard when you're in that position, when your therapist is like, no, this is what you need.
Well, and when you're in a depressed state,
yeah,
asserting your own will is hard.
And I was living by myself, like in Rhode Island, far away from any of my support system, any of my family. It was during a time when my friends were all gone because they went on internships. So I was completely by myself, completely vulnerable. And yeah, she was basically using me as a guinea pig because she had just gotten certified and wanted to try out this new therapy. So that was bad. But yeah, so I haven't been to therapy since then just because that was such a terrible experience. I got medication through my regular general practitioner doctor so that I can take care of my anxiety and depression. And I have a decent toolbox from being in cognitive behavioral therapy as a teenager. So that's been fine. But I'm currently looking for a therapist that specifically is good with depression and anxiety, but specializes in obsessive compulsive disorder, because that's something that I think may apply to me, and I would like to work with someone who can help me figure that out. So
yeah. So one thing I tell people, here's a resource I do know off the top of my head. The articles I'm going to share are from NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, which is full of resources and information and amazing. NAMI, you can also call their helpline. It isn't necessarily a crisis line. It can be, but it can also be a resource line. And if cost is a prohibitive factor to you, you can call them and they can let you know about low cost or no cost options in your area, if there are any. Yeah. So that's a thing. If you have health care that you need to be sure a provider takes your insurance, you can go to Psychology Today, the magazine, and they have a find a provider thing, and you can choose like what kind of provider, like a psychiatrist, a therapist. You can choose specialties, and you can also put in that like your type of insurance, and they'll pull up providers who are for your insurance.
And what I've been doing is, so I work for a health insurance company, so I know how their stuff works. Our company has even their doctor search also has you can select just specialties like psychology and stuff like that. So I've been kind of cross-checking between the two a lot because there's some reviews on there that may not be on Psychology Today. So that might be a resource depending on what kind of insurance you have.
Yeah. Also, one of the articles, we're going to say, look for I think the articles are how to find a provider and signs that you and your provider aren't a good fit, or you should switch providers. So, is it Louie or your wife?
My wife.
Oh.
Hello, Becca.
Hi, Becca. That's Becca, everyone. Okay. So there's that.
And it is important that you don't feel like you're trapped with anyone. It is perfectly okay to go through a few therapists or whatever, psychiatrists, until you find someone who you vibe with.
Yeah. And it's important. So there's this week's mental health moment. We'll do some acquisitions. I'll do an acquisition I have, and then I think we're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Acquisitions. Sam doesn't have acquisitions because they've been behaving
Not
themselves.
buying things.
So, I'm going to start by saying this. My yarn cabinet was getting kind of bonkers. Like, the poor skeins looked like animals trapped in a cage in there. They were, like, pressed against the glass of the cabinet.
Help me.
Yeah, save me.
Save me.
So, that's why I've been doing a lot of sweaters, too. I'm like, okay, I need to not buy yarn for a while, and I need to knit down my stash. So that's what I'm doing. And then I went to the yarnery because Yelly was here and said, do you want to go? And I was like, sure, I don't need anything, but I'll go with you and keep you company. And then I bought a sweater quantity. But I've resisted several times since then. But look at this. So I had one skein of this here. And then I decided, why not get 4 more so I have a sweater quantity? Which, to be honest, I will be more likely to knit. Look at this, people. This is one of my favorites. It's Anthology Yarn Company, who are local. So this is fingering weight, and this is their Volume 2 Meadows. And it's called Prairie Smoke.
It's pink.
It is. But pink, but like, look at that.
Yeah. That's really nice.
And what it is, so they're out of St. Paul. This is Midwestern Merino and Corriedale. Woolen spun in Wisconsin, hand dyed in Minnesota.
Nice.
And I love it.
It's awesome.
So if you would like some Anthology Yarn Company, you can get it at the Yarnery online. They do online. So go to yarnery.com and you can get Anthology. And it's amazing, and I cannot wait to use this.
Maybe that'll be one of my post-stash clearing purchases.
They, like, seriously, I stand in front of the Anthology Yarn Company section at the Yarnery, and there isn't a single color they dye that I would not knit.
I started following them after you told me about them, and yeah, their colors are beautiful.
So pretty. Yeah. That's all. I think that's it for this week.
Yeah, I think so.
We're going to try again for next week, too. Wish us luck. Fingers crossed. Okay. So, see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.